I never imagined my medical degree would end up as ashes in my mother-in-law's expensive marble fireplace. But watching the flames devour 7 years of hard work, I felt an odd sense of calm. Patricia Wilson had finally gone too far. There, she said, brushing her hands together like she'd just disposed of trash. Now you can stop pretending to be something you're not. Her perfectly styled gray hair and pressed nurse's uniform made her look like a recruitment poster for medical professionalism. The irony wasn't lost on me. Behind her, my husband James stood frozen, mouth open in shock. We'd only stopped by to share my news about the chief of surgery position. I hadn't expected to find Patricia burning my credentials at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday. Mom, James finally managed. That was her original degree certificate. Patricia's smile was pure ice. Oh please, we all know she bought it online. No daughter of a car mechanic gets into Hawkins Medical School. She turned to me. I've been a nurse at Metropolitan General for 30 years. I know real doctors, and you, dear, are not one. I thought about the letter sitting in my email, the one announcing my appointment as the youngest chief of surgery in Metropolitan General's history, the one that would put me directly in charge of Patricia Wilson, the nursing supervisor who'd been making my life hell since I married her son 2 years ago. Actually, I started, but Patricia wasn't finished. I warn you, James, she continued, pacing her immaculate living room. These gold diggers are clever. She probably Googled medical terms just to impress you. Remember that nice girl from your prep school I introduced you to? She's a pharmaceutical rep now. That could have been a respectable match. The familiar shame crept up my neck. I was used to Patricia's digs about my background. The daughter of a single dad who ran an auto repair shop wasn't exactly who she'd envisioned for her only son. Never mind that my father had worked double shifts to put me through college, or that I'd earned a full scholarship to medical school. That's enough. James's voice was quiet but firm. In 2 years of marriage, I'd never heard him use that tone with his mother. Patricia blinked, her perfectly penciled eyebrows rising in surprise. I'm only trying to protect you, darling. Do you know how embarrassing it is? My colleagues ask about my doctor daughter-in-law, and all I can say is she's between positions. I almost laughed. I'd been between positions because I'd spent the last 6 months in secret meetings with the hospital board, preparing to take over as chief of surgery. Only James knew. We hadn't told anyone until the contract was signed yesterday. Show her, James said, squeezing my hand. Show her everything. I pulled out my phone, watching Patricia's smug expression as I opened my emails. You know, Patricia, it's funny you mention your colleagues. We'll be seeing a lot of each other starting next Monday. What are you babbling about? She snapped, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. Did you attend the staff meeting last month, the one about Dr. Richardson retiring? I kept my voice casual as I pulled up the email. Patricia's face tightened. Of course. They're bringing in some hotshot from Boston to replace him as chief of surgery. Dr. Sarah. Her voice trailed off as she finally connected the dots. Dr. Sarah Mitchell. I finished for her. That would be me. The color drained from Patricia's face. That's impossible. Is it? I turned my phone to show her the official email, complete with the hospital board's letterhead. You should read your interdepartmental memos more carefully. There was a whole biography circulated last week, including my graduation from Hopkins. Patricia snatched the phone, her hands shaking slightly as she read. I continued, warming to my task. I believe you have a promotion review coming up next month. As chief of surgery, I'll be sitting on that committee. In fact, I'll be chairing it. The phone slipped from her fingers. James caught it before it hit the hardwood floor. You can't? She stammered. You're not. Not what, Patricia? Not qualified? Not good enough? Not from the right background? Each question hit like a hammer. Maybe you should have done some fact-checking before burning my credentials. James stepped forward, his lawyer instincts kicking in. The hospital board will be very interested to hear about the destruction of official medical credentials. That's technically a criminal offense, Mom. Patricia sank onto her pristine white sofa, her nurse's uniform suddenly looking less crisp. I was only trying to protect your son. I finished. By destroying his wife's property, by attempting to sabotage her career. The grandfather clock in the corner ticked loudly in the silence. Through the bay window, I could see Patricia's prized roses swaying in the morning breeze, as perfectly manicured as their owner usually was. I think James said carefully, we should go. Mom, I suggest you take some time to think about how you want to handle this professionally going forward. Patricia's face crumpled, but for once I felt no sympathy. 2 years of snide remarks, subtle sabotage, and social humiliation had led to this moment. One more thing, I said, pausing at the door. That nice prep school girl you wanted James to marry? Jessica Thompson. She interviewed for a pharmaceutical contract with Metropolitan last week. I smiled sweetly. Guess who heads the hospital's pharmaceutical committee now? We left Patricia sitting there, surrounded by the ashes of my degree and the ruins of her assumptions. In the car, James let out a long breath. I'm so sorry, he started, but I cut him off. Don't, you're not responsible for her actions. He gripped the steering wheel. I should have stood up to her sooner. All these years, watching her treat you like this. I touched his arm. What matters is you stood up to her today. Besides, I couldn't help smiling. Karma has a way of working things out. Dr. Mitchell, chief of surgery, he grinned, has a nice ring to it. As we drove away from Patricia's perfectly maintained Victorian house, I thought about Monday morning when I'd walk into Metropolitan General Hospital wearing my new white coat with chief of surgery embroidered under my name. Patricia would be there, in her supervisor's uniform, having to introduce me to her nursing staff as her superior. Sometimes I muse, the best revenge isn't served cold, it's served with a side of professional authority and a garnish of karmic justice. But something told me this was just the beginning. Patricia Wilson hadn't maintained her iron grip on family control for 30 years by giving up easily. As we turned onto the main road, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your office is ready for inspection, Dr. Mitchell. It read, Nurse Wilson has personally overseen the preparations. I showed James the message. His jaw tightened. Ready for part 2? He asked. I smiled, already imagining what surprises Patricia had in store. Bring it on. Walking into Metropolitan General Hospital as chief of surgery felt surreal. The same halls I'd avoided for 2 years, trying to minimize encounters with Patricia, were now my domain. The click of my heels against the polished floor echoed with authority, and I noticed staff members doing double takes as I passed. Dr. Mitchell, Dr. Anderson, the hospital director, hurried to greet me. We're so excited to have you on board. Nurse Wilson has been here since dawn preparing your office. Of course she had been. James had offered to come with me, but this was a battle I needed to fight alone. I'm sure she has, I smiled. Shall we? The chief's office was on the top floor, with views overlooking the city. As we approached, I could hear Patricia's voice giving rapid-fire instructions. The personal items need to go. It's unprofessional. And that computer setup is all wrong. Dr. Richardson never. Actually, I interrupted, stepping into the doorway. Dr. Richardson's retirement party was last week. This is my office now. Patricia spun around, nearly dropping the family photo she was removing from my desk. 2 junior nurses behind her looked terrified, clutching cleaning supplies. Ladies, I addressed the younger nurses. Thank you for your help, but I'll take it from here. They practically ran from the room, leaving me with Patricia and Dr. Anderson. My office had been transformed, all right, into a sterile, impersonal space that screamed temporary occupant. My personal items were boxed up, my ergonomic chair replaced with an ancient model, and my specialized computer setup dismantled. Just tidying up, Patricia said sweetly, making sure everything meets hospital standards. Dr. Anderson shifted uncomfortably. Well, I'll leave you ladies to sort out the office details. Dr. Mitchell, we have a board meeting at 11. The moment he left, Patricia's smile vanished. You may have fooled them with your credentials, but I know what you really are. I walked to my desk, noting the subtle sabotage, broken drawer handles, a wobbly chair leg, missing power cords. And what's that, Patricia? An opportunist, using my son to climb the social ladder. She placed her hands on my desk, leaning forward. This hospital has traditions, standards. We don't need some mechanic's daughter playing doctor. I met her gaze steadily. Interesting. Should we discuss this at the staff meeting? I'm sure everyone would love to hear your views on social mobility in medicine. Right after we review the security footage of you entering my office at 5 a.m. to sabotage my equipment. She paled slightly. You wouldn't. Try me. I began unpacking my box of unprofessional items. You know what I learned growing up in my dad's garage? How to spot someone tampering with equipment. How to document damage. How to prove intentional sabotage. My phone buzzed. A text from security confirming they preserved the morning's footage as requested. I turned the screen so Patricia could see it. "You're making a mistake," she hissed. "I know everyone here." One word from May. One word about what? I cut her off. About how your daughter-in-law, the new chief of surgery, graduated top of her class at Hopkins. About how she completed her residency at Mayo Clinic. Or about how she just received a major research grant. I leaned forward. "Choose your words carefully, Patricia. Workplace harassment is a serious offense." A knock at the door interrupted us. "Dr. Mitchell?" A young nurse peeked in. "The Thompson Pharmaceutical presentation is starting." "Ah yes, Jessica Thompson, Patricia's preferred choice for James." "Thank you. I'll be right there." I turned back to Patricia. "You should come. I believe you championed their last contract." Patricia's face tightened. She'd been vocal about awarding contracts to Jessica's company, often overstepping her authority to influence decisions. The presentation room was packed when we arrived. Jessica stood at the front, her prep school polish slightly tarnished by nervousness. Her practiced smile faltered when she saw me. "Dr. Mitchell will be heading the pharmaceutical committee," Dr. Anderson announced. "All final decisions will go through her." I watched Patricia sink into a chair, her perfect posture crumbling as Jessica stumbled through her presentation. The proposed contract was overpriced, the terms unfavorable. When Jessica finished, she looked hopefully at Patricia, who had promised to handle everything. "Thank you, Ms. Thompson," I said pleasantly. "Unfortunately, we'll be going with a different supplier. Their terms are more competitive and their trial results more comprehensive." "But Nurse Wilson said." Jessica stopped, realizing her mistake. "Nurse Wilson isn't authorized to make contract promises," I replied. Perhaps there was a misunderstanding. The room was silent. Everyone knew Patricia had overstepped, but no one had ever challenged her before. "If there's nothing else?" I stood. "I have a board meeting to prepare for." Back in my office, I found my computer restored and my chair replaced. The junior nurses must have returned during the presentation. A sticky note on my desk read, "We fixed everything. Thank you for this morning." My phone buzzed with a message from James. "How's it going?" I was about to reply when Patricia appeared in my doorway. She looked older somehow, her armor of perfection showing cracks. "You're destroying everything I've built here," she said quietly. "No, Patricia, I'm doing my job. The job I earned." I met her eyes. "The question is, are you going to do yours?" As a nurse supervisor, not as someone trying to control everyone's lives. She stared at me for a long moment. "You'll never be one of us." "Good," I replied, "because us shouldn't be about social class or family connections. It should be about saving lives and running this hospital effectively." Patricia turned to leave and paused. "That research grant you mentioned, what's it for?" "Developing affordable surgical techniques for underprivileged communities." I smiled slightly, like the one I grew up in. Something flickered across her face, grudging respect perhaps. But it was gone before I could be sure. She left without another word, her heels clicking down the hallway. I looked at the family photo she tried to remove earlier, my dad in his mechanic's uniform at my medical school graduation, pride shining in his eyes. Next to it, a new photo would soon stand. Me in my chief of surgery coat, proving that a mechanic's daughter could indeed become something more. But as I prepared for the board meeting, I couldn't shake the feeling that Patricia wasn't done yet. This was just the professional front, the personal battle was still to come. My phone buzzed again. "Family dinner this Sunday," Patricia had written in the family group chat. "No excuses. I have an announcement to make." I stared at the message, wondering what she was planning. The professional war might be over, but the family battlefield was about to explode. Sunday arrived with the weight of impending doom. James gripped the steering wheel as we pulled up to his parents' house, the same Victorian mansion where my degree had become fireplace fodder just days ago. "We don't have to go," he said for the 10th time. But we did. Patricia's announcements were never simple affairs. They were calculated power moves. Avoiding this dinner would only give her more ammunition. The house was unusually quiet when we entered. No classical music playing, no smell of Patricia's signature roast. Instead, we found the family gathered in the formal dining room, the tension thick enough to cut with a surgical scalpel. Patricia sat at the head of the table, her husband Thomas beside her, looking uncomfortable. James's sister Emma and her husband occupied the other end, their expressions grim. An unfamiliar elderly woman sat in what was usually my seat. James Sarah. Patricia's voice was honey poison. Meet Margaret Richardson, Dr. Richardson's mother. My stomach dropped. Dr. Richardson, my predecessor as chief of surgery. Mrs. Richardson was just telling us some interesting stories, Patricia continued, about her son's retirement. Margaret Richardson fixed me with a steely gaze. My son was pushed out, she declared, forced into early retirement by ambitious young doctors who couldn't wait their turn. I felt James tense beside me. We both knew the truth. Dr. Richardson had been asked to retire after multiple complaints about outdated practices and his refusal to modernize. Mom, James started, but Patricia raised her hand. Let Margaret finish. She's been on the hospital board for 30 years. I knew for a fact she'd stepped down last year, which meant. You didn't know that, did you, Dr. Mitchell? Patricia smiled. About Margaret's former position, just like you didn't know she's my oldest friend. The setup became clear. Patricia had orchestrated this entire scene, thinking she found my weakness, hospital politics and old guard connections. But she'd made a crucial mistake. Actually, Mrs. Richardson, I said calmly, pulling out my phone, I have something you might want to see. I opened an email and handed it to her. Your son sent this last week. Margaret's eyes widened as she read. The email was Dr. Richardson's formal endorsement of me as his successor, praising my innovative approaches and dedication to patient care. But, she looked confused. Harold said he was forced. By the board, yes, I finished gently. But not by me. I was chosen after he recommended me. He said you were traveling in Europe when all this happened. Patricia's face went from triumphant to ashen as Margaret turned to her. Patricia, you told me Sarah orchestrated Harold's removal. That she threatened him. The room fell silent. Even Thomas looked shocked. I was protecting our hospital's legacy, Patricia said weakly. By lying to me, Margaret stood, her aristocratic bearing now turned against her friend. Harold specifically told me his successor was brilliant. He didn't mention it was your daughter-in-law. She turned to me. I owe you an apology, Dr. Mitchell, and Patricia, we'll discuss this later. After Margaret left, the silence was deafening. Emma was the first to speak. Mom, how could you? Patricia's facade finally cracked. I was losing everything, she whispered. My influence at the hospital, my son, our family's position. No, Mom, James said firmly. You were losing control. There's a difference. I watched my mother-in-law, this proud perfectionist woman who tried so hard to maintain her illusion of social superiority. In that moment, she looked small. You know what the irony is, Patricia? I said quietly. If you'd actually read my proposals for the hospital, you'd see I want to maintain its prestigious reputation. I just want to make that excellent care accessible to everyone, regardless of their background. Thomas cleared his throat. Like that research grant you mentioned. I nodded. We'll be partnering with community clinics, including one near my dad's old garage, bringing advanced surgical care to people who could never afford it before. Patricia struggled. That's actually quite impressive. It wasn't an apology, but from Patricia Wilson, it was seismic. Well, Emma stood up. Since there's no dinner, why don't we order pizza? Like we used to before Mom got obsessed with social status. To everyone's surprise, Patricia gave a shaky laugh. I suppose my coq au vin isn't what matters right now. As James called the pizza place, I watched Patricia move to the kitchen, her perfect posture slightly slouched. I followed her. You know, I said, leaning against the counter, the hospital needs someone to head up community outreach for the new surgical program. Someone who knows both the medical and social aspects of our community. She stilled. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you a chance to be part of something bigger than social status. Your choice. Before she could respond, the doorbell rang, probably Margaret Richardson returning for round 2. But when Thomas opened the door, it was my father standing there, still in his work coveralls. Sorry to interrupt, he said, but I just finished Sarah's car service and thought I'd drop it off. Patricia looked between us, the mechanic father and his chief of surgery daughter, and something in her expression finally changed. Would you like to stay for pizza? She asked him. We're having a family dinner. Dad looked surprised, then smiled. Never could resist a good pizza. As we all gathered around the dining room table, Patricia Wilson sharing pizza with a mechanic, her perfect table settings forgotten. I realized sometimes the biggest victories come not from winning battles, but from changing the way the war is fought. James squeezed my hand under the table. "Think this peace will last?" he whispered. I watched Patricia actually laugh at one of my dad's car jokes. "Maybe not perfectly," I said, "but it's a start." And sometimes that's enough.